Let me first thank the organizer for inviting us to be part of this meeting, to share experience and to learn. That's the only reason we came here, not to give any ideas in terms of how to find these solutions. I'm mindful of the time, and I'm not sure as to how to deal with these things. In an event that you decided to cut me short, let me start by the conclusions. I make my choice to what I think should be the solutions. Firstly, for us is that we need to have a strong voice. We need to have a strong trade union. Trade unions that are militant, that are democratic, especially in the South. And I'm saying this in the context of the trade unions in the North, and where trade unions has grown to a certain extent, to say we need and have a responsibility to build the trade unions in the South. But a trade union that is not only a workplace trade union, that deals with wages and working conditions, which we call it a gumboots or bread and butter trade union. But the trade unions that make an appeal to the broader community. And we're saying this thing because the trade union sometimes is better organized. It makes its work based from the income it generates from its members. It does not rely on donations, because sometimes there's no free lunch. They are string attached to what you may say and to what degree. So we will only strongly recommend that we need to build a strong trade union. But for a trade union to be able to operate, and I'm mindful that there are trade unions in some countries that are being hunted day and night, killed, just to stand up and represent the trade unions. But we needed to have a trade union that works in an environment where social dialogue is enshrined in law. Not a question of kind of feel good by a particular party, that it allows social dialogue. Another party came to power, it can at a will remove that right. We need some social dialogue that is institutionalized. It is in this context, in our view, that we can therefore be able to start to talk about the decent work. In the absence of social dialogue, in the absence of trade unions, even if you can be called to a table, you are likely to endorse what government thinking is. This is just become a sweet or yellow union, unless you've got a very strong trade union. And therefore, the right to work, to good working condition and sufficient income for the basic political and social or family needs can be only enforced. The second point we want to make in our conclusion is that we want to make an appeal to the trade unions in the North, because there's a perception growing from the trade union in the South. And we wanted to say the trade unions in the North need to do some kind of intro-inspection. In our view is that trade unions in the North, they have good resolution on paper. You cannot question them. But when they are needed most, especially during the trade negotiations, the dominant of the voice following the trade union resolution becomes absent. And what we see is that the national interest, what the countries want to achieve, become dominant. So when the trade unions of the South complains about the outcome, at best, the trade unions in the North will keep quiet. There might be reason on this. The view from the South is that on these critical matters, the trade unions of the North sometimes become nationals first. What is good for my country? Will this trade or these things, what it will do to the workers? It might be correct, it's a natural human behavior. You react first as to what is closer to you to happen. But in that context, the question of internationalism and the global solidarity disappeared. So we needed to find a way so that there has to be some real trust between the trade unions of the South and the trade union of the North. So that when there's a company, multinational company that is notorious, like moving to a particular country, and you want the trade unions in those countries, they can truly believe you want them not because you want the company not to move away at home, but you want them because how is intending the company to exploit those workers wherever they go, because it cannot be in the trade union interest to stop wherever company goes. Our responsibility is that wherever it goes, it respects the trade unions and the human rights. We have no control to a multinational company, whether it comes from Germany, but it has to become on the basis that it is not intending to exploit the interest of the workers. Thirdly, for us, is that the global challenge of neoliberalism cannot be resolved in the workplace only, or by the trade unions alone. And therefore, we argue that the trade unions has a role to play more in the civil society. In our case, as many people will know, when everybody was banned and the political leaders were in jail or in exile, the trade union occupied the space, become the voice of the voiceless, and occupy the space. Now, we want to argue that the trade unions has to be visible and be able to make alliances with any other like-minded people. Sometimes it's not easy. The trade union at some point in time has long battles with the Greens because there was not better understanding. The Greens will say, this factory must be closed, it's poisonous, full stop. The trade union have an interest of the members working there, and it could not go to the workers and say, we are going to argue and support the closure of your factories. It took some time, but now we are in a better understanding. There's an absence of the trade unions working with social movements. I sit in the World Social Forum, I sit in the International Council of the State. The voice of the trade union is absolutely minimal. Except your Court Brazils and few others, there is almost absence. So I'm saying if we have to move up and be able to do the pressures and be able to have a better phrase, we need to be there. We need to be able to engage. But fourthly, we have to deal with this international solidarity and be able to balance. And I'm also raising these issues to the people and the community of the North. When we have problems in Zimbabwe, we'll hear a bigger voice from almost everybody up north. But when we have a problem in Swaziland, which is not far from Zimbabwe, it's almost the issues of Swaziland non-existent. And the perception that is growing in there is that there are people in the north, because of the relationship between Zimbabwe, multinationals and the companies coming from the north, there's a bigger interest in democratization of Zimbabwe, and there's an absence in Swaziland, which is absolutely an autocratic state. So we said we needed to find this. And finally, in terms of the resolutions we want to have on, is on the trade negotiation, as I've said earlier. Our view is that there is no free trade, and we should not be asking for free trade. In fact, we should be trying to look for a fair trade. This is our experience. It has nothing to do with the developing countries to be able to trade in a fair way. In our case in Africa, it is a question of the EU, which most of its countries were colonized of Africa. That the question of opening the market is just for the African countries to be able to send their raw materials where it's needed. So it's not about reindustrialization of Africa. In fact, it's worse than that way. So we said we needed to have some debate around these issues to look to the dangers of these agreements. But the bottom line to us is that government officials, in our experience, maybe because we're new in democracy, have no experience in negotiating these issues. Government officials are worse negotiators in relation to these issues. In fact, they get advisors from the other side. Now, you can't go to negotiations and ask your opponent to give an advice on these particular issues. Trade unions negotiate on a daily basis. It's our job, in fact, in terms of negotiations. But also because we've got some sister unions who have known the experience, it's easier to engage than the officials in government. And our view is that we should be demanding that we need a seat at the negotiating table. What has made the WTO to come to a deadlock, in our view, and we argue, is the involvement of the civil society and their government, sitting next to your government and remind your government every time you want to make a point of selling out, you'll be able to drag his jacket a little bit and say, can we caucus on these particular issues? Because they don't know the areas or in issue they are engaging. So in our conclusion, we want to use the slogan of the civil society and trade unions in relation to this issue to be saying nothing for us without us. And I'll stop there. I can engage on the other issues. I can engage on the issues of why the conservatives and the right wings are winning elections. When we are there and we know their policies, that is not going to be good of our countries. But why to wake up every day and vote for the one that we criticize? It might be reasons that we have lost time with people who are not able to sell our messages, and therefore we need to be engaging in relation to those issues. Why in Europe, which we regarded people are more literate, they are more exposed to these issues, they vote for the right wings. When the right wings, wherever it is, we know it's a bad news, whether it's from America to everywhere. Conservative right wings are bad news to the society. But why the majority wake up every day and vote for them? We can explain and in making the engagement and debate as to what informs us in terms of those issues. When the crisis was the new crisis, the latest one, everybody was talking about the market failure and the new dispensation. But as soon as the bailouts managed to take those countries out of the quagmire they were in, you can't hear people even talking about any other alternative. It's normal. Crisis will come and go, and the capitalism system will manage to move from crisis to crisis. And we're failing, in my view, to take and pull the people to lead us. Well, one of the organizations, if you take the trade union global, we've got millions of members. Registered members, not people who appeal to members. I think we might be closer to the churches in terms of membership with cards, memberships which we can count, but we are failing to deal with those issues. So I wanted just to stop there and then be able to engage in question. Thank you very much.